Welcome to Know Your Food, the podcast where we explore the world of food by speaking with farmers, makers, entrepreneurs, and experts who are reshaping how we think about what we eat. I'm your host, Michael Ray Robinoff, CEO and co-founder of Farm to People, and we're recording these conversations live from our warehouse in Bushwick, Brooklyn. In today's episode, I sit down with Mimi Cheng, co-founder of Mimi Cheng's, the beloved NYC dumpling shop built around family recipes and high-quality ingredients. Since opening their first East Village location in 2014, Hannah and her sister Marian have grown Mimi Cheng's into a brand that's expanded beyond restaurants and into retail, with their frozen dishes now available for home cooks. We talk about the early days of building a values-driven restaurant, how Mimi Cheng's has evolved over the past decade, and what it means to grow with integrity in an industry that's constantly changing. Hannah also shares what she's learned about ethical sourcing, working with family, and staying grounded while scaling a food brand. If you've ever dreamed of turning your favorite family dish into a business, or want insight into how to enter retail, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Thanks for tuning in to Know Your Food. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who eats with intention. And now, here's my conversation with Mimi Cheng. Thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it and have been a fan since you opened in the East Village 10 years ago, actually.
Long time.
Yeah, I remember.
70 years in New York City years.
It's like dog years, yeah. I remember. We used to live on 11th between Avenue B and C. Yeah. So when you opened on, what was it, 2nd Avenue? It was
and 11th, yep.
Yeah, and 11th. It was within a walk, and then we had to move to Bushwick, and yeah. No more dumplings. No.
Well, now you can get.
Now I buy them from Farm to People. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to chat. You've been incredibly resilient, one of the hardest businesses here in New York. I feel like so many restaurants come and go. You've built such a loyal following. I want to start with that side of the business because I think really obviously the CPG piece of the business is so much born out of that. So I want you to talk about what do you credit that success to, and just bring us up to speed about how that success has evolved into this sort of new venture out of that business.
So actually 12 years ago, our idea was always to start a frozen dumpling business. But frozen food 12 years ago is not the same as it is today. It was kind of sad TV dinners and frozen pizza. And one of my friends said, well, you don't have a brand. No one's going to know to come look for you in the freezer aisle. So my college roommate, her grandfather actually helped start the Rao's sauce side of the business. So since I was 18, I always heard about this famed Rao's, and I had their sauce all the time because we had it for free through her family. And so I said, I'll follow that model. I'll open one restaurant, create some brand equity, build proof of concept, and then go into retail. And of course, when you try something really new and really hard, the first year is just whiplash. And then you start feeling like you're getting the hang of it. So you want to open more, and there's economies of scale. So we ended up opening 4 restaurants in the last 10 years. And I think a lot of that success was, one, Instagram was just starting, and it was a free advertising tool that we were really interested in, and we jumped on that bandwagon early. And then just being ourselves. I think the voice behind the business was just my sister and I, and we were sharing something we were truly passionate about, which is our mom's cooking. We felt like the food that we saw at the time was not really representative of the food that we grew up eating, which was really clean, really light, really fresh. And don't get me wrong, I love Chinese takeout too. It's a different category of food in my mind. So we wanted something that felt a little more home style, and I think that really resonated with people. And building the retail business, really COVID forced us into it. We were like, okay, now we have to try 18 different ways to try to make money because our team wanted to work. So we went into retail, just making them in the restaurant. And that went really well. So we found a co-packer, and then the whole thing started. Now we're in Farm to People, Whole Foods, and we're actually going national with Whole Foods in August.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's a lot. We're learning as we go.
Totally. I mean, with any of it and all of it, I think most entrepreneurs, I think, especially if they're doing it the right way, start from a place of a personal passion, mm-hmm. and then so much of the day-to-day grind is so far removed from the reason you started. It's just problem solving in such a different way. But there's always that sort of guiding like why, the why. Start with the why. And so yeah, this is a family. I mean, I think it really, you started as a family business. You started with one store and one location. What were some of those like early learns and why 4 stores instead of going, once you proved out the one, like at some point you were one of the, I don't know, one of the first, but I remember one of the first as I was sort of becoming aware of these Instagram menu collaborations. You would do these really cool, other chefs would come in and design a dumpling of the month.
Which is so fun.
Yeah. So talk a little
funny,
more about
you
that.
know, the word authentic is kind of triggering because I feel like authentic is so different for each person. Our family heritage is Taiwanese. My mom's Taiwanese Chinese, but she was born and raised in Thailand, then moved to Taiwan. So of course her cooking has Thai influences, and then she moved to the US, so it also has influences of vegetables and just different cuisines here. And so for us growing up in New York, the type of food it was equally as normal to us to eat fried rice for breakfast or chiffon, or it was to have a bagel with peanut butter and jelly or cream cheese and jelly. And so for us, why not with dumplings? Our first special was a buffalo chicken dumpling that we just felt like it's just something we wanted to eat. And some of our specials have been really popular, and other ones people have been like, this is a little off. But it's just a fun canvas that we can use to be creative. And I think it's fun to do familiar flavors, but in a new format.
And then why, so you said your initial concept was to start a frozen dumpling business, got into the restaurant world. What then made you stay like longer than maybe expected in the restaurant business? Just success, like it was working, or?
It was working. Also, when you have a really good team, they want mobility to move up. If you only have one location, there's really only one GM position. There's only so many promotions you can give someone. And so we had a great team, so we said, let's just keep opening more. We're actually starting to get the hang of it now, so we did.
Yeah, makes sense. That's a great way to put it, and I think, not necessarily something we would think of as a reason for expansion, but really, really cool. So then when the pandemic hit, that was like a reason to go
That's how I got all my white hairs. Yeah.
I can imagine. The restaurant, the pandemic was something crazy for everyone, but nothing crazier than I think being in the restaurant industry. And
any service industry, I think.
Totally. I mean, lockdown is not good for hospitality.
No.
So you decide to pivot. What did that look like? Because selling into homes then comes with a whole bunch of other interesting sort of rules and regulations, whether it's USDA certification. I know obviously with meat, talk to us a little bit about the hurdles there in taking something that was restaurant kind of made on the spot, or maybe made in a commissary and going out to like the different restaurants, to something that then becomes co-manufactured, et cetera.
Yeah, there's a huge learning curve. And I think that's kind of the part of the fun of it. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like every 7 years I get this itch to try something really new. And trust me, I try to talk myself out of doing frozen retail, because anyone you talk to, they're like, frozen, CPG in general is really hard. And then frozen is especially hard. You have to be sadistic to go into it. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I kind of took some time off after COVID from this idea and working on it, just to see, maybe I'm running away from something and I really am just trying to distract myself. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So I was like, you know what, the time's gonna pass anyways. I might as well do something that I can get off my mind. And so when we started doing the home kits during COVID, there's some certain regulations where if you are grossing less than X amount of revenue and you're making it in a restaurant, you don't need a USDA facility, because we already have the DOH license. And we worked with Baldor. We did make your own dumplings at home kits. We worked with Goldbelly, where we sent frozen dumplings, and we also taught live dumpling classes, which was really fun. And then as we scaled, we're like, we need somebody who has USDA registration, so we found a co-packer. Let me tell you, I think everyone at the same time decided to wake up and start a frozen dumpling company, because all these co-packers were saying, we don't know who you are, we're not interested, unless you're doing Costco-sized volume, we don't want to talk to you. And so we found a co-packer that was somewhat local, and he had heard of our restaurant, so he was willing to take us on. And they're amazing, and they pass our food safety audits with flying colors, 99.5% every year. And so we lean on them for a lot.
Amazing. And when it comes to finding a co-packer, and also sort of, in my mind, like your restaurant did in terms of bringing not just family recipes into the restaurant, but also like a real, like, I think like sustainable sourcing ethos. Like from day one, you were like, I remember going into the restaurant and being like Happy Valley Meat. I feel like if I'm remembering correctly.
Great memory.
Who we work with, who you know. So I just remember this like very like, not just like, oh, you have to ask the person at the counter and they're like, oh yeah, it was front and center. Like we work with great suppliers who care about like, and we care about the sourcing of our meat and our ingredients end to end. How do you then take that process where, at least like in your own kitchen, it's under your purview? When you go to a co-man, it's this kind of other world. The cost structure changes a lot, maybe some ways for better and some ways for worse. How do you make sure that integrity and that ethos continues as you scale?
Yeah, and also finding great vendors that can actually scale. Not every farm can support a national launch. So that was definitely a hard part. And our co-man, we help source the meat and certain ingredients. And Whole Foods, their ingredient standard is really impressive. And as I looked into different ingredients, I was like, oh, this is why a lot of the shelf-stable food or kind of big-name brands, when you try it, you're like, what's in this? There's basically nothing. Like, okay, this is an egg roll, but it tastes like nothing. And you realize because just finding ingredients that meet certain ingredient standards, and then cost. So a lot of them are solving for cost, whereas we're solving for deliciousness, clean label, and then also we had to fit ourselves within a certain price point. Mm-hmm. So it's just not something we're willing to compromise. And again, I go back to Rayo's because, I remember when Rayo's first started, they were 3 times the price of Ragu and Prego. And I think now if we survey the room, how many people like Rayo's sauce? Like, it looks like, 85%, I'm guessing at a quick glance. It's really good. And so they just always refuse to compromise on the quality of their ingredients. Mm-hmm. And that's what they built their brand on. And so that's been a guiding light for us.
Yeah. And now when you think about upmarket competitors to Rayo, like think about that, how they've shifted the category up. You have Carbone, you have some really...
Thank God, right? Thank God we're not all still eating like that sauce, that Ragu.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. When you think about competition, I guess, within the dumpling space as well, how do you think about competition? Has it changed? Do you see now copycat brands since you've even began?
Yeah, they all follow us on Instagram. They think they're sneaky, but we see them. But I actually think it's a wonderful thing. I think a rising tide lifts all boats, and we don't want to be the only dumpling maker because that means the category is not that popular. And I think choice options are nice. Like when you go look at the olive oil or tomato sauce, row, there's millions, not millions, but hundreds, not exaggerating, millions of sauce. But there's a lot of options, and I think that's great. I think there's a price point for everybody. And I remember when we first started Mimi Cheng's, our number one complaint was, you guys are so expensive. And I remember talking to my mom being like, I don't even think we're that expensive. Like, we're making $1 on this thing because of the meat that we buy. And she said, like, it's great that there's different options for everybody because maybe not everybody can afford this option and they need to have an option to eat. And then there are people who really care about sourcing the way that everyone in this room does, and we're their option. And it's great to have options for everybody. So I think the different brands that you see on the shelf, they all fill a different niche, and I'm glad they're there.
Totally.
Yeah.
How do you think about the creativity of what you were doing in the restaurant in terms of like launching new flavors and creating sort of limited time drops when you're doing something that's completely the opposite of that, when you're thinking about scaling just 4 SKUs and you've probably made 25 different maybe more, hundreds of, probably, in 10 years, maybe hundreds of different types and configurations of dumplings. And now you've like narrowed it down to these 4. How do you keep that, the magic of something new drops, new excitement?
So it's easier at the restaurants because we control everything. We control the menu, we control the team. If we wanted to put out something new tomorrow, we could. Whereas the lead time for grocery stores is a lot longer. Normally, the review to get something on shelf is a year out. So if there's something, a flavor that you think, oh, this will be really popular for right now, I think people would be really interested, you have to think, well, will it be interesting still in the next 2 to 5 years or whatever timeline you're looking at? And so we've also learned a lot because the restaurant customer isn't necessarily the same consumer as on the retail side. On the restaurant customer, when you're ordering takeout, you're kind of indulging yourself, you're treating yourself. Whereas I think the grocery customer, from what I've seen, tends to lean a little healthier. So they might say like, oh, does this flavor also have vegetables in it or not? And so we're learning how to balance the two. But what did you guys think of the chicken parm dumplings? Snaps? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank God it wasn't crickets in here. But also, like on the retail side, we look at all the specials from the last 10 years, and we track all the data, and we see, okay, what are our top-selling special flavors? What have they been? Can we convert that on shelf in retail? And that's the way we've been strategizing.
Yeah, though you answered my question there. I was curious because you kind of picked 2 what I'd call more traditional flavors, and then 2 unique, really fun, out there flavors. And I think you kind of answered that. They performed well at a restaurant level first. You were like, people love the cheeseburger flavor, people love the chicken parm flavor. Let's roll those out. Would you think about like getting into dumpling sauce game, like pairing them with, I guess, in terms of future potential?
We've thought about it, and we've actually talked to your team about it. It's interesting because I think a lot of new consumer product brands spread themselves too thinly, and every aisle and category is its own supply chain. So down to the buyer, it's a different freight. We ship everything frozen. It's a different warehousing storage. So I think for now we're focused on conquering the frozen aisle, and then once we do that, we can think about expanding. But we don't want to stretch ourselves too thin. I think a lot of brands make the mistake of rolling out 18 SKUs, and they can't support 18 different products or flavors. And so kind of like our restaurant menu, we like to keep it consolidated, as small and concise as possible so that we can make sure we're doing a good job.
Totally. On that note about, biting off more than you can chew, I think CPG is just such a different scale and such a different game, and the costs associated with distribution, but also with, even slotting fees and demos, whereas you do have a really wonderful following and community here in New York. Do folks in Miami know about you? Do folks in Chicago know about you? And how do you go into new markets and get that name recognition in these other markets? On that note, how did you and your sister start Mimi Cheng's? Did you self-fund? Did you ever raise capital? And at any stage, did you decide, okay, now we're gonna go, we have this sort of, tailwind, we're gonna use that to raise capital?
So we self-funded. I worked in finance for 10 years before that, so we had the luxury of not having to raise money. But for the frozen product, we did raise money because it's so expensive to go into grocery stores. Like you mentioned, slotting fees. If you wanted to go into any big supermarket chain, before you're even on shelf, you've shelled out a few $100,000. And that's just the pay to play. And that's why we really love working with partners like Farm to People, because I think you guys give a lot more margin back to the farmers and to the vendors versus the middlemen. And not that I should be talking badly about any of the middlemen, because we're working with them. They've been great partners. It's the way the business structure is done.
Yeah, I could talk about it all day. It's so really messed up. Like when you think about, I think this is the Know Your Food podcast, so I think it's really interesting to dive a little deeper into that, because I think people don't really realize how costs get like thrown around really from retailer to distributor, from distributor back to vendor, all in a pursuit to win customer dollars. And I think it's really important that people think about this. I know kind of getting some bad PR right now, but is Albertsons saying, there was a letter from their like EVP of
passing on the tariff
retail,
costs.
saying don't pass us the tariff costs. But what does that mean? Like either the brand has to absorb it, which depending on the scale of the brand may or may not be possible, or, and this is where I, as a smaller retailer, as someone who believes that not just us, but other independent retailers need to exist and are good for customers to have this, and good for brands, frankly, like to have that diversity. And I think what's a little bit scary there is that, does that mean that like, oh, a Mimi Cheng's, a Minnow, you're not going to mess with a retailer like Albertsons? Like it's too much. You can't.
You have no leverage in that situation.
So then do independents have to foot more of the bill, because it's like whatever like you're going to pass along in discounts to them, then get the upcharges get passed along. And then you create this more of this disparity and imbalance.
Well, so we're actually all domestically made down to our packaging, but the week before the tariffs hit, we had actually found a packaging vendor in China, and we were really excited because it cut our packaging costs in half. And so I got
plus $145.
So I got the samples made. I paid for the plates, which cost $7,000 to get the plates made for the samples. And then 4 days later, they re-quoted us, and the price was 2x. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm out $7,000, but I still have my domestic packaging. But those are all savings that would have been passed on to the customer. And so, but again, we don't have much pricing power. Really, our dumplings should be priced at $11.99 per pouch. And then retailers will say you have to be below $9.99. And to be competitive, your competitors who you're competing with are $6. So when you go on promotion, to put it in perspective, on a $9.99, a $10 pouch, we're making maybe 75 cents roughly. But when we go on promotion, we pay $2 off each pouch, which we pay for. It's not the retailer that's paying for it. So.
Of course.
Do the math.
That's important.
And again, that's just kind of the cost of doing business and winning customers. So you have to bake that into your model.
Yeah. So is the long-term strategy, if someone's, well, at what point does the math? Yeah. Is the point that you'll get to a scale where you'll be able to drive down things like the packaging cost, the ingredient cost, to a level where even on promotion, that $2 discount is still a profit.
That's the amazing thing about going national this year and also expanding with specialty independents, is that we can start ordering things from with economies of scale, so with a lot better. And also, then we can start sourcing directly from farmers and directly cut out some of the distributors in the middle. But you need scale to do that. So it's important.
Yeah, it's the chicken or the egg kind of
exactly. You kind of have to hold on long enough until you're just large enough to start getting these savings. And I think that's unfortunately where a lot of the smaller brands phase out. But I think it's so important for there to be all different kinds of brands, because I want there to be other choices besides the big conglomerate brands. How boring would it be if we didn't have any choice? And I remember during COVID going to supermarkets and all the shelves were cleaned off. And I was forced even more to shop at the farmer's market, which was amazing because I got my bread fresh. They always had it because they were made local, same with meat and vegetables. And I was like, thank God for farmers markets.
Yeah. I mean, we believe completely in regional and local food systems. I think they're truly more resilient, and while they don't have everything, it's certainly enough, at times. I think that there's like a broader conversation with which is there really enough if like COVID were to have been prolonged longer, or supply chains would have been broken for longer.
Well, we all tried our hand at making sourdough bread, right? So we all got real creative.
Exactly. We spoke to Sarah from Need Love, and she's one of the few people I know who still has her starter is still alive.
Oh wow, that's really
and
impressive.
Thriving. Yeah.
My ficus tree unfortunately died. I brought it back to life, and it's gone now.
It's gone now. Yeah, I think interesting, like how when you say that, and I think like when so many CPG brands, I think, understand the economics, and it's really a game, and I think it's really, I mean, it's not a game, it's a livelihood, but it's a game to try to take your revenue to a certain scale and your costs to a certain scale. And when you start, the costs are here and the sales are here, so you're burning. and then you slowly over time try to get to this point of parity, and then that's break even.
Yeah.
And this is X dollars, and it's slowly dwindling, and it's a race against time. Do you need to raise more, and that? And I think that's something that's interesting because we work a lot with like farmers, and I just think economics of it are totally different. There's something magical about American opportunity of a CPG brand. I think like whether it's Siete Foods or Poppy, like it's the American dream.
It is the American dream.
It's what you can do, and creating something new and magical and never been done before. It's
I think,
incredible.
and that's actually one of the things that I love about the culture in this country is there's never a bad time to bet on yourself, and you're able to do that, whether it's in CPG or a different kind of business. I always thought with the restaurants how cool it was that I had this idea in my head and I visualized it, and my parents were horrified that I went to Georgetown, and now I was leaving JP Morgan to open a takeout restaurant, and they always said, this is the reverse immigrant dream. You don't have to do this. A lot of people do this because they don't have any other options, or like their degrees, their licenses don't transfer over. And I was like, Mom, Dad, you don't understand. This is gonna be different. And they try to talk us out of it for over a year. And then when they came to help us open, they were only supposed to be there for 5 days. They ended up staying for 2 months. I have a picture of my dad just sleeping against the wall because he was so tired from city biking to Home Depot to pick up another thing. And so now every time they come visit, they always have a return flight booked, and they normally don't stay past 4 days.
We're going to put them to work.
Yeah, they're a little traumatized. We're retired now, we're not interested. Okay, I forgot your original question because now I'm just thinking about my family.
No worries. Transitioning over to restaurant versus CPG, like what does the future hold?
Oh, I remember. Sorry, my original point was that I thought about this, and then to be able to physically walk into this thing, this place, this idea that was only a figment of my imagination, and then to have other people come in and to watch children's and families grow through the years, it was just so magical that it became something tangible from my mind.
Yeah, totally. I think my next question around the future is really, do you continue to think about the restaurant strategy as a way to also bolster the brand and demos and using it almost in R&D?
For sure.
Like think about even Chobani opening up their cafe as a place to like R&D new concepts. Do you think about it that way?
For sure. And we like the interaction with hospitality people. You also do it for the love of interacting with people and seeing the joy on people's faces. So I think it's both. And we have some exciting other locations coming up next year that I can't talk about yet. But we're always constantly seeing how can we reach more people, not just from groceries, but also different food service partnerships.
Got it. And then you obviously have a finance background. You're co-founders with your sister.
Yep.
One of my co-founders is my father. I a little bit know what it's like to work with.
I didn't know that.
Work with a family. He's now retired as well. So
is he really retired though, or is he still a little involved?
Did they ever really retire? He's like, what's going on the P&L? He's very finance. He's like, what's this line item? So. But retired from the day-to-day and trying to remove himself a little bit more. But I guess, like, how did you and your sister sort of, in the early days, like, break up responsibilities? I think it's just a lot of people aspiring to start a CPG brand, a lot of, I guess, the popular thought is to have a co-founder, to have different skill sets. What did that look like for you and your sister?
My sister and I have always been really close, and we've never been competitive in our entire lives. So I wouldn't recommend all siblings work together, but it works for my sister and I. Like, we implicitly trust each other. Even if the other one makes a decision that the other one doesn't agree with, we know it was done with the best intention in mind. And I think having that, just like that sense of safety and trust is huge. I think really, if you're looking for a co-founder, make sure you know them really well. I've seen and heard many stories where people say, oh, this is my friend. I'm like, it's always a bad idea to work with your friend. You guys probably won't be friends in 2 years for the most part. There are, of course, exceptions, but I think finding a co-founder that complements your skill set, but also that you know well, but not too well, is important. And for my sister and I, there's just a natural division of tasks. So I kind of handle the back of house stuff. So everything from production up until it hits the grocery store. And then she handles everything from grocery store to the customer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I often feel like successful co-founder relationships are really
Related?
about. Well, there is that. I think if you're related, you can't break that. You're gonna still be sisters at the end of the day. Yeah. Although, there are certainly horror stories.
Yeah.
No, but also I think really finding someone who you don't feel threatened by and they don't feel threatened by you. I think that's really important because you really have to scaling a business is so hard.
Yeah.
You have to and I feel this way about as you scale a team too.
For sure.
You just want people that are better at you in every way.
You want them to be better than you. It can't be the blind leading the blind. Also, there really can't be ego. I think there's a lot around hot brands where sometimes you'll see one founder gets more PR than the other one, and that causes a rift too. So there can't be, you have to have one common goal.
Yeah. And ideally, I guess like the respect to know that the other person, the trust and the respect to know that the other person has what they say they have and will go forth and conquer, and that you do what you say. Yeah.
Or at least the tenacity to go learn, because I always think we never had any restaurant experience. I never even worked in a restaurant in high school or college, and my first experience was opening my own restaurant, which I do not recommend to people. Do not sign a 10-year lease in New York without restaurant experience. Thank God it worked out for us, but it could have been really, really ugly. Just go out and do it. I think the best way to learn is actually by doing. And so in general, everything, down to washing the dishes and taking the trash out, same thing with retail and building CPG, is how can I hold someone accountable or teach someone to do it if I don't know actually where the pain points and the friction points are? So I try to learn everything myself. Of course, I ask for help, and we have a lot of great consultants that we work with as well, because it goes a lot faster. The co-man search, we looked for a good co-man for 8 months. And then we later found out you could hire people to do these co-man searches for you that just hand you a list of people and all their contact in 2 weeks. So
money well spent.
Money well spent.
Yeah. Totally. I've learned that the hard way too. As we get to the end here, like you've done so much from physical restaurants to catering to wholesale and now CPG. Was it like why have you diversified into so many channels? And what are you, I guess, both excited about and nervous about in expanding all of these different things that as you mentioned earlier, following up on that thread of not losing focus.
Yeah.
This is a lot, and why do you think that's a benefit and not I guess the opposite of a benefit?
Well, it's kind of what you were saying before with restaurants it's like an R&D kitchen, it's a stake in the hospitality world, it's a branding opportunity. So we see these things as accretive, they build on each other versus taking them away. And I think it's really exciting. We're not going to be Chipotle. We can't open hundreds of restaurants. We make all the dumplings by hand in the restaurant. If I try to go to Kansas and open a place, I don't know if I could find a dumpling wrapper there. But I want the people in Kansas to have a really delicious, healthy, good-tasting dumpling. And so I think it's really cool to be able to walk into your local store and then have our dumplings in your freezer.
Could you not, as you scaled frozen dumpling business, use the frozen dumplings that you're creating for the retail to also then open up restaurants in Kansas? Or
we've thought about it. That might be phase 2. We have to stay laser focused for now.
Sorry, I'm really good at getting you off track.
Yeah. What were we talking about again?
The team is like, whoa, let's focus.
Yeah.
I guess there's so much in the way of new products, new restaurants, and also I think a real new appreciation and even desire to find products from diverse voices and different cuisines. That's one of the most exciting things that I feel like we're all seeing. But do you feel like the food industry has become more open to diverse voices and cuisines over the past decade? What still needs to change?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think restaurants, there's so many great restaurants, and that cycles pretty fast. I think the bigger supermarkets of the world are slower moving because everything is longer. So they kind of have to think about, okay, if I make this decision today, is it still going to be relevant in the timeline 2 to 5 years? And actually, what do you guys think is the most requested cuisine when it comes to takeout? Anybody? Oop.
Chinese?
It is Chinese, but when you go to the grocery store, that's not reflected in the options that you can buy. And so I think there is going to be a level up where people are getting more Chinese food, Thai food, Mexican food, Indian food, and I think we're starting to see more of that.
I'm just curious, is that New York? It feels New York specific. Is that?
It's not New York
It's
specific.
not New York. It's U.S.
Yeah, it's U.S.
Crazy. I wouldn't have imagined that. It's,
Yeah.
I'm from the Upper West Side, so I get it. And I guess lastly, I want to talk to me about your personal ethos around food, and then and what does farm to people mean, I guess, also to you in the landscape of New York and in the landscape of food distribution and food retail in general. I'm just curious how what we're doing resonates
This
with
is
you.
such an important question. I've known about you guys before you guys contacted us. And I have to say, your co-founder, she emailed us years before we even got into retail, and she asked us if we would do frozen dumplings. And I was like, yeah, we're thinking about doing it. And she just kept following up. And I was like, finally, we're actually here. And look, you can have this product. But it was probably a 2 or 3 year long conversation that Anina and I had. But I think I personally love to shop locally because, one, I think the nutrition is better. The farmer cuts it, or the meat is processed last week or 2 days ago, and now you're eating it. And so that's maximum nutrition and taste, I think. And so for me, shopping local is really important. And it creates jobs here, which is even more important, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, Anina's one of the. I'm very lucky to be with her, both as a partner and a co-founder.
Yeah.
We get to eat at the best restaurants, and she's got an eye for absolutely the best products.
Yeah, I was like, thank you for following. I just met her for the first time in person when I walked in. I was like, thank you for emailing me so many times. I really was not brushing off. I was just trying to figure out what we were doing.
Yeah, also entrepreneurial. We don't give up. When we know we like something, we will persist until we get it. And
we have to.
We have to. And you're making, on that note, you're making such an incredible dent in the freezer aisle. And we're huge fans, obviously. That's why we're so persistent. And I'm glad the world now is getting to experience Mimi Cheng's outside of, the East Village, where we got to experience it probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Literally, no, definitely. I remember when you opened. And
I know. I love meeting people who have been going since 2014.
Yeah.
Thank you for sticking with us, because we had no idea what we were doing.
Right by a great movie theater. That's how I know, too, because I love
literally
movies.
cried our opening night. We sold out. The New York Times wrote about us the day before, and we're like, great, it's the New York Times. We had no idea what it meant. And then hundreds of people showed up, and I was prepping broccoli until 3 a.m., crying myself to sleep, being like, I signed up to do this for the next 10 years of my life. I can't be chopping broccoli till 3 a.m. for the next 10 years. But, you figure your stuff out.
You certainly have.
Yeah.
So congrats, and thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for listening to Know Your Food, a podcast from Farm to People. If today's conversation got you thinking differently about what's on your plate or where it comes from, we'd love if you shared this episode with a friend or left us a review. It helps more people discover the folks reimagining the future of food from the ground up. And if you're in the New York tri-state area, you can shop from our network of small, regenerative, independent farms and makers at farmtopeople.com, and stay in the loop by signing up for our newsletter or joining us on Instagram @farmtopeople. Until next time, eat well and know your food.